I grew up in a drug-infested neighborhood on the south side of Jamaica, Queens, New York. When I was 9 years old, my father was found dead in the street. I had two older brothers, and over a period of time, drugs took both of them out. I had an older sister, and over time, drugs took her out as well. When I was 18, my mother was killed, her boyfriend shot her. Now, my story gets deeper, but I'm going to cut it off at this point, because the point that I want to make is this. We all have stories to tell. And if you don't have one, then you know someone else who does. Stories like, my father wasn't around, my mother was on drugs, I grew up in foster care, I was molested as a child, my parents got divorced, we were homeless. The stories go on and on. But you can't use your story as an excuse to do the wrong thing. You can't use your story as an excuse to mess with drugs in any way, shape, form, or fashion, to join a gang, to be a bully, to stop going to school, or to associate with the wrong crowd. As a matter of fact, most successful people will tell you that they use their story as fuel and energy and motivation to become successful in life. Now, my mentor, a guy who he made a huge difference in my life, he shared that information with me when I was a teenager, playing basketball every day at a place called the 40 Projects. And he also told me that a quitter never wins and a winner never quits, and that it's not how you start out, it's how you end up. Those were my building blocks. So, in spite of my story, I'm a retired warden from the New York City Department of Correction, and prior to my retiring, I had care, custody, and control over New York's most notorious drug kingpins, murderers, and gang members. Now, Rikers Island, it's the largest detention complex in the country. It's over 400 acres in size, and there's 10 different jails on Rikers Island. One of those jails is called the Robertson Singer Center. That's where the young ladies go if they get arrested anywhere within the 5 boroughs of New York City. So everything that I talk about pertains to the young ladies in the audience as well as the young men. This year's budget, over $1 billion. It's a lot of money. And on average, during the course of each year, over 100,000 new admission inmates pass through that system. And so I stress those numbers because I want all young people to realize and understand that if you use your story as an excuse to do the wrong thing, then chances are you're going to end up in a place like Rikers Island. Now, why do I say that? Well, I spent 22 years of my life working on Rikers Island. And during that time, over 2 million new admission inmates passed through that system. And we're just talking about from the 5 boroughs of New York City. So I walk those cell blocks and those recreation yards every single day talking with those inmates. And you know what I learned? I learned that they all had a story to tell, and that many of them had used their story as an excuse to do the wrong thing, which led to them being incarcerated. And as I talk with young people throughout New York City and other parts of the country, I'm finding that many of them have the same mindset. Because of their stories, they feel they have a justifiable excuse to do the wrong thing. And so the question becomes, as a young person, what are some of the things that you have to do to ensure that you don't end up in a place like Rikers Island? Now, I mentioned it earlier, but it bears repeating. You can't use your story as an excuse to do the wrong thing, and you have to make great decisions. Not good decisions, but great decisions. Because when your future's on the line, and when your life is on the line, a good decision, not good enough. Every decision that you make has to be well thought out. Give you an example. When I was in high school, I was an all-city basketball player and received over 500 scholarship offers from many of the major colleges and universities throughout the country. And after careful consideration, I chose Virginia Commonwealth. Now I'm going to fast forward 4 years. I'm now married to my high school sweetheart. I have a son, and I'm a college graduate. And so I come back to New York with my family and my degree, looking for a job because I had a family to support. And so I hit the ground running. But there was only 2 opportunities that was immediately available to me. One was to be a newspaper boy, and the other was to sell drugs. Those were my immediate options. And 2 of my college teammates got drafted and signed NBA contracts. So 2 of my guys are living the dream, and I got a decision to make, whether I'm going to sling drugs or be a newspaper boy. Now, this is my thought process. I mentioned earlier that I had 2 older brothers and that drugs took both of them out. Well, I was 12 years old. One of my brothers was 15, the other one was 16. My 15-year-old brother, he died from a heroin overdose. And so I would rather shovel horse manure to make a living than to sell drugs and destroy my community. And as a young person growing up, if you're paying attention to what's going on around you, you gotta know that that drug game, it's only gonna take you to one of 2 places. That's jail or the cemetery. And then you gotta understand that drugs, they don't discriminate. They don't care if you're black or if you're white. They don't care if you're rich or if you're poor. They don't care if you live in the city or if you live in the suburbs. They don't care if you're a straight A student or a high school dropout. They don't even care if you live in the United States or if you live in Norway. You mess with drugs, they will wreck your life. So even though it was a life-changing decision that I had to make, the choice was a no-brainer. So I'm 3 weeks into my job as a newspaper boy and the telephone rang. It was a Sunday night. I'm living with my in-laws. My good friend called me and he told me that they were hiring at a place called Spofford Juvenile Detention Center in the Bronx, New York. So that Monday morning, got dressed, went to Spofford, interviewed, and I got hired on the spot. 4 years and 8 months later, I resigned from Spofford and became a member of the New York City Department of Correction. And throughout my career, my goal was to reduce violence and to help the inmates adjust to institutional living and develop socially desirable habits and behavior patterns so that when they were discharged, they stand a better chance on not coming back. And with the help of dedicated officers, civilian personnel, volunteers, and by implementing a number of programs, we were actually able to accomplish that goal at the Adolescent Jail. This was done during a time when that facility was considered to be one of the most violent jails in America. And so now that I'm retired and no longer working on Rikers Island, my goal is to keep young people out of the criminal justice system altogether. And to accomplish this mission, I talk with young people and I give them information that's going to help them make great decisions when it comes to bullying, gangs, drugs, jail, the importance of staying in school, getting a good education, associating with the right crowd, setting high goals for yourself. In the words of Norman Vincent Peale, I always tell young people to shoot for the moon, because even if you miss, you're going to land amongst the stars. And so in closing, I just want to say that it's been my honor to stand on this stage and to share this time with you. Thank you very much.